I'm Jo Avery. I'm a quilt designer and teacher from Edinburgh, and I'm going to be doing some more needle turn applique. So in my previous film, we talked about the flower pot block, and we're just following on from that with this lovely dove block. So here's one I prepared earlier. And what I'm going to concentrate on this time is going in and out, which is a little bit difficult to do. So we're talking about convex curves and concave curves. I always get them mixed up, but I'm pretty sure this one is the concave curve, and that's the one that we're gonna do first of all. And then we're gonna look at a different way of preparing this shape here. In the last flower pot one, I did leaves. This is almost looks like a leaf, even though it's a wing, but so we're going to look at a different way of doing that. So what I've done with this is I've already gone all the way around here. If you want to check out that last video, you'll be able to see that I talked extensively about how to do the stitch. So we've already done that bit, so we're going to look at going around here. Now, even though this is a curve shape here, actually it needs to have a little pointy beak. But before we start this, we've got this concave bit here, and we're not going to be able to do this without snipping into the seam. So that's what I'm going to do to start with. I'm going to put some little snips here. My seam is a very scant 1/4 inch, so I don't want to go beyond that, but I pretty much want to go up to it. And you know, if you don't snip enough, you'll know when you try to turn the edges under, and you can snip more. So always be slightly more cautious. But you know, this dove, if this dove looks a little bit different to that dove, then that's just like nature, so that's fine. So I'm going to just pinch these ends around so I can get a little bit of a curve to take it up to here. And then I'm going to pinch it that way as well, because I've got another one of these little dog ears that's coming in. So I've got my dog ear this side. I'm just hanging on to this. It's such a small area, I'm not going to bother putting a pin in. I'm just going to hang on to it with my thumb until I get up to that area. So just these tiny little slip stitches. I'm using the 80 weight Aurifil thread again in the pale grey. If I had a very pale pink, I might have used that, but this pale grey is just perfect with so many different colours. Now, I've got to tuck this in, but at the same time I have to get these edges turned under as well, because by the time I've got that in, I'm straight into this curved edge. So this is where this gets a little fiddly, and the bits of applique that are going to sort of fox you slightly until you're a bit more practiced. So what I'm doing is I'm pinching that under there first before I turn this edge under. So now we've got to get this dog ear in, but I don't want to lose this edge here, so I'm going to use my needle to swoop under, just to get rid of all of those edges. And then we're going to do this little tricky little rolling folding motion to get rid of this dog ear at the beak. It's disappeared under the seam, so we'll do some stitches here. Need to get rid of it again to see a little bit of fluffiness. Now you can wet your needle, and that will give you a little bit more purchase for turning those ends under and getting rid of any of those raw edges. But you have to just very carefully. Don't put it in your mouth, because that could be dangerous. So what you can do is you can have like a little wet sponge next to you, which is a much safer way of doing it. So I'm just pinching here before I start to do this, so that I can get this lovely curve. And you can see how you get these little fluffy bits. I can just blow them hopefully and get rid of them as well. And poke them under. There we go. So what I'm going to do with these concave edges is a lot of swooping. So we swoop it all under, and then you can sort of press it a little bit with your nail or your finger, and then we can start to sew it. And if you see any of those raw edges popping back out, you can just do another swoop. But they all seem to be nicely turned under at this point. And we're getting a lovely curved edge. And what's happening here is that this edge is going in, but then it's coming back out again. So I have to make sure I'm not losing the little dove's rounded breast there. There we go. So that's looking nice. I'm happy with that. And I think we get the idea of that. So we've just got a few more stitches to put that in there, and then that whole part of his body is finished. Right, so now we're going to have a look at the wing. I am going to stick this through the back, come back to it later. And where's my wing? So what we're going to do here is we're going to get some foil and we're going to get a little bit of card. There it is. So I've made a template already, which is the exact size of the wing. So if you get your templates and you cut out the inner line, so not the outer line that's got the seam allowance on, but the inner line, and you make a template with this. So I basically just drew around it onto the card and cut that out. You'll see that also this wing is not symmetrical. So if I put it this way, it doesn't fit. So when you cut out your wings for these doves, you need to make sure you're getting it the right side. So it's going to look like that. So then we're going to get our bit of foil that I've already cut out, and we're going to put our fabric right side down, so wrong side up onto the foil, and we're going to put our card template on top, and then we're going to wrap it all the way around. Now you need to do this on a hard surface. We're going to press it after this, and you can be tempted to think I'll just stay by the iron, I'll do all this by the iron, but it doesn't work so well if you try and do it on the slightly spongy iron surface. So you need to do this wrapping bit on a firm hard surface. You can always take something like a magazine to the ironing board for you if you're doing quite a few of these. So we're going to wrap it around. I'm sort of firmly holding the card with my fingers, and I'm wrapping it around. What I want to do with this point here is to completely do it in one direction and then do it in the other direction. So I know that dog ear is going to be nicely folded. You can take your time with this. You really want to make sure that you're going to get a nice edge, that everything's, all your folds are going to be, there we go. So I've made sure that that's completely wrapped, that card. And then I'm going to press it. I'm going to stand up because I really want to put some pressure on here. So giving it, you can't really tell, but I'm pressing quite hard that side, and then I'm pressing really hard on the other side as well. And then now it's a little bit hot, so be careful. Carefully unwrap it once it's cool enough. And it should be a nice edge all ready to go. Now if you want, you can also give it another little press. You have to do this quite carefully just to keep this. I'm not sure whether this iron probably could do with being a little bit hotter, but that should work pretty well. The other thing you can do is you can use something like flatter or spray starch first of all, and that would even help you get your edges turned on even better. So now we need to pin this on here. I'm going to take these pins out and use them. Looking at my other one as a guide, I'm going to try and put this in the right place. There we go. I think that looks about right. As I say, they are different birds. They've got their own little personalities. You don't want them to look like they've been made by robots. They're made by human beings. So let's put those in. Now the way I've ironed that's actually nicely made that dog ear turn under there. Sometimes it doesn't do that. You get a little bit poking out, and you can just use exactly the way I showed you on that to poke it under. But really now we're just going to sew all the way around that. So I probably don't need to even show you that bit because you've seen lots of stitching. So once we've sewn that all the way around, then you just give it a nice little press. Oh, and we're going to give the little dove an eye. That's what we're going to do. So I'll sew that later, and I'm going to come back to this one, and we're going to practice a colonial knot, which I like more than a French knot. It's got a little bit more oomph to it. It stands up a bit. It's got a little bit of a twirl on the top, and it's just a bit more fun to do once you've managed to work out how to do it. And it does take a little while. So this is the sort of thing you probably want to replay quite a few times. So the little eye is going to go there, but because I want to have a bit of practice, I've got this little bit of fabric here to make some. So I'm going to use a heavier thread here. This is a 12 weight thread, so it's like a pearl cotton. It's an Aurifil 12 weight. Any embroidery thread would be absolutely fine. At this point you could use a really thick 6-stranded one, or just use 2 or 3 strands of a stranded cotton. So I've come up here where I want my knot to be. And then what I do is I take the thread in my left hand, and with my needle in my right hand, I hook it up like this. And then I do a little figure of 8 with the thread around my needle. So you can kind of see that figure of 8 there. Now, normally it wouldn't look like that because normally I'm pulling it tight as soon as I've done it, and then I'm taking it to a few stitches from where it came out, and I'm going to pull that tight, and we should get a little knot. We'll do another one so you can see. Let's show that again. So we hold that with our left hand, we go underneath with the right hand, and then we do a figure of 8. Pulling it a bit tighter, we take it in just a few threads away from where we came out, and we'll make sure it's quite tight. Keep our thumb on the top as we pull it, and we get quite a nice little knot, which is what I'm going to use. I'm going to do one more and give the little dove an eye so you can see his little partner when I finish it. So I think it's going to go about there. That looks about right. So I'll have one last go at that. We take the thread with our left hand. With our right hand we put the needle underneath it, and then we do a little figure of 8. Bring it down just next to it, not in the same place, just a few threads away. And we take that through, and we've got a lovely little eye. There.